Thank you, everyone, for being here. Really appreciate so many of our city leaders and various organizations who have joined us here today. And let me start by saying that San Francisco stands behind our sanctuary city policy. We have been and will be and will continue to be a sanctuary city despite what we know are challenges that we continue to face from this administration in the White House. All of the folks here come from various organizations. They're various community leaders who have dedicated themselves to not only providing resources, but in particular legal resources so that we can do everything we can to prepare for things that are unforeseen, but also, as we know and as we have heard, the threats around these most recent ICE raids. Here with us as well is our police chief, who will not be cooperating with ICE, and I know we've been asked that on numerous occasions. As part of our sanctuary city policy, our city is committed to not dedicating any financial resources to cooperating with ICE. We will support and stand by our immigrant community and continue to invest and provide resources to help address what we know will be a very challenging time. It's really sad that we are in this state of affairs. We have people and families and children in particular living in fear of going to work, going to school, going about their daily lives. And as we continue to try and address this particular issue, we want to make sure that people understand not only what we're doing as a city, but just information and places that they can go and phone numbers that they can call for help and support. And as I said, I want to thank our police chief, Bill Scott, and our sheriff, Vicki Hennessy, for their work to try and build trust in our communities so that folks in our immigrant community are not afraid to interact with our local law enforcement. And I in particular want to thank City Attorney Dennis Herrera, who has been really an incredible advocate in defending San Francisco's sanctuary city policy. He's not able to join us today, but his work is invaluable. So I want to start by making sure that everyone knows their rights. Everyone is guaranteed certain rights under the Constitution, whether they are in this country illegally or not. If you are arrested, you have the right to remain silent. You have the right to an attorney. Remember, immigrant agents generally need a judicial warrant to enter your home. Our Office of Civic Engagement and Immigrant Affairs is a resource to helping to get you connected to the legal services that you need. You can reach them by calling 415-581-2360. 415-581-2360. And if you can't remember that number, call 311 and they will connect you to that number. You can also go to immigrants.sfgov.org. If you want to report a raid, please call the San Francisco Rapid Response Hotline at 415-200-1548. 415-200-1548. I want to thank the federal officials who have been extremely supportive of this city during this very difficult time, including both of our state senators, our U.S. senators, Senator Kamala Harris and Senator Dianne Feinstein, as well as Speaker Nancy Pelosi and Congresswoman Jackie Speer. I also want to thank our state officials who have been very actively engaged in helping us deal with what we know have been a number of challenges, including State Senator Scott Wiener and Assemblymember Field Ting. They both could not be with us, but we do have someone here with us today, a state representative who just last year, he and I partnered to address what we know are challenging questions around immigrant status on our census, pushing for the kind of legislation that will allow everyone, no matter their immigration status, to be counted in the upcoming census without fear of being targeted. And so, ladies and gentlemen, at this time, I want to introduce Assemblymember David Chiu.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Let me first start by thanking all of the community who are behind me, from the mayor to our Board of Supervisors to the leadership of our law enforcement to the incredible advocates and community presence representing the diversity of the world here in San Francisco. I wish we were not here today, but we are. We are a city in San Francisco and a state of California that knows that our history was built by immigrants, that our present success is due to our immigrants, that our future success depends on our immigrant communities. As a son of immigrants, the very first time I ever spoke upstairs at the Board of Supervisors 20 years ago was in defense of our city's sanctuary city policy, and I'm so proud that we, along with so many cities in California, have stood up for the idea that we value our immigrant communities. We are all unfortunately here because Donald Trump has decided to continue to wage his war against our immigrant communities, a war that is immoral, unjust, racist, and xenophobic for his political gain, with the announcement of raids that are meant deliberately to sow fear within our communities. And we're all here to say, we stand with our families, we stand with our communities. Mr. Trump, and to the department that is coming after our families, if you want to come after them, you're going to have to come through all of us. Mayor Breed just summarized some of the rights that we want to educate our communities on. They're rights under our Constitution, the rights to remain silent, to have an attorney, the constitutional requirements of judicial warrants. But all that being said, it's so important for all of us to continue to put the word out. At the state level, in the wake of the election of the current occupant of the White House, our state has passed over a dozen laws to protect our people, starting first and foremost with the declaration that California is a sanctuary state, that in addition to local law enforcement, state law enforcement will not be cooperating with ICE. There are a number of bills that I've helped to author along with my colleagues, and I want to say that I speak on behalf of Assemblymember Ting and Senator Wiener. Our Safe Schools for Immigrant Children Act, which says that school employees cannot work and cooperate with ICE agents. The Immigrant Tenant Protection Act, which I drafted with the feedback of immigrant and tenant advocates here in San Francisco, which says that if landlords cooperate with ICE, they can be sued. Our Immigrant Worker Protection Act, which we authored, as I was asked to do so by the janitors of this city, that established the strongest protections in the country to protect workers from workplace raids. And I want to thank our mayor for the work that we have done. We have put tens of millions of dollars into last year's budget and this year's budget to ensure that CBOs and nonprofit organizations are helping to educate our immigrant communities and defend our immigrant communities. And let me also say, as the chair of the API Legislative Caucus, to our Asian American constituencies, we have to remember that 1 in 5 of our undocumented immigrants come from our diverse API communities. Unfortunately, Donald Trump has decided to single out Cambodian refugees, Southeast Asian refugees. We need to do more. Let me end with potentially a message of optimism, which is, I do believe this will pass. Someday, the current occupant of the White House will be gone, hopefully sooner than later. And we here in San Francisco and California, by representing the world, we are where America is going. The diversity of San Francisco, the diversity of California, this is becoming the diversity of our country. And I think we all know that there will be a day when someday soon, what is happening today will hopefully be a footnote in history. That day cannot come soon enough. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Assemblyman David Chiu. We appreciate your advocacy and your work in Sacramento. And again, I want to acknowledge Sheriff Vicki Hennessy isn't here, but Paul Miyamoto and Susie Loftus are here from the Sheriff's Department. And I'm really grateful to have them here because I do want to reiterate the fact that here in San Francisco, our local law enforcement, we do not cooperate and coordinate with ICE officials. And I'm really grateful that they support and stand by that policy and do so in their actions. Maricela Esparza has been actively engaged and at the front line of this fight for so many years for our immigrant families and communities. She's the director of the Immigrants, Rights, and Community Engagements. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Maricela.
Thank you so much, and good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here. I oversee the San Francisco Rapid Response Hotline here in San Francisco, as well as the San Francisco Immigrant Legal and Education Network, which is a coalition of 13 organizations that partner together to provide education services and legal services to the immigrant community. I want to start off by thanking Mayor Breed for calling today's press conference. At this critical moment, it is very important for all of our political leadership to stand together and not to backtrack on the various wins that we have had over the many years when it comes to immigrant rights, and to stand together with the community's continued demands against the vulgar attacks that the federal administration is doing against the immigrant community. Here in San Francisco and throughout the U.S., we know that immigration is an issue that not only affects the Latinx community, but also the API community, the Arab community, and the African community. However, the media tends to focus just on what is happening at the border and focus on the recent wave of immigration, where we know that immigrants are the ones who have built up and continue to be an integral part of the community locally and nationally. Through the rapid response networks throughout California, we have been monitoring a recent wave of increasing arrests. We have confirmed arrests in Contra Costa, Sonoma, and Santa Clara counties. We cannot say for sure that this is because of a raid or ICE operations, because at this moment, the arrests that we receive, we know are not the full count of arrests that are happening in the community. However, with the fact that there is an increase, we know that people need to be aware and prepared of what their rights are. One thing that I want to mention and clarify is that we have been using the terminology raids, and that word is reminiscent of 2008 and 2010, where we were seeing ICE forcibly enter people's homes and go into businesses and massively arrest everyone. However, that is not what we are seeing here today. Today, ICE's operations are a lot more covert. They conduct extensive surveillance and wait outside of people's homes and wait for them to come out or to let people open the door and let them inside and then conduct collateral arrests. And that is why people need to be prepared and know that they do not have to open the door. They do not have to let ICE officers inside. They do not have to give any information other than their name if they are arrested. And to know that the best way to combat what is happening right now is to be prepared with power and not panic. The campaign and the tactics that ICE is using is a campaign of terror, where they're trying to make sure that the community isolates itself and steps away from being in community, because that will make them easy targets. We cannot feed into that. People must remain in community, continue to go to your church organizations, to community organizations, and seek out information locally and know what to do. That is the key point of what the rapid response networks do. And that is why together and being prepared is how we're gonna combat this. Our rapid response networks work 24/7 and are available at any moment in time. We have already records showing that our attorneys show up to the processing center sometimes before ICE and the detainee arrive there. And so it is really important to make sure that we are prepared and are continuing to fight power, not panic. Thank you.
Thank you, Maricela. And I also like to take this opportunity to, again, thank the people who have come here today, including many members of the San Francisco Board of Supervisors, as well as our Fire Chief, Janine Nicholson, our Director of Public Health, Grant Colfax, and other leaders who are a part of the important fabric of helping to lead San Francisco. There are a number of commissioners here, including many of the commissioners from the Human Rights Commission, and I want to thank each and every one of you for being with us today. Now I'd like to introduce the next speaker. Hongmei Peng is the Director of Advocacy for the Chinese for Affirmative Action.
Good morning. My name is Hongmei Peng, and I represent Chinese for Affirmative Action, a 50-year-old civil rights community-based organization here in San Francisco, Chinatown. I wanted to thank Mayor Breed and the leaders of San Francisco and the state of California for taking an affirmative and strong stance against the terrible ICE threats that have come out of the White House. And we are also a member organization of the San Francisco Immigrant Legal and Education Network and a dispatcher on the Rapid Response Hotline. I stand here in solidarity with every single immigrant family who have endured the ongoing assaults by the Trump administration through an escalation of immigration enforcement tactics, including the widespread ICE operations to tear families apart and stoke fear in the fabric of our community. We denounce these abusive threats. These tactics demonstrate that the Trump administration has zero regard for our common humanity. ICE operations, human rights violations at the border, racial profiling, and the criminalization of immigrants all contribute to the aim of inciting white supremacy and xenophobia in the United States. The Rapid Response Hotline has received hundreds of calls just in the last few weeks. We are the first line of defense for immigrant communities who are vulnerable to these threats and to ICE against their harmful, non-transparent, and problematic practices. Advocates will monitor and verify enforcement activities around the clock to ensure that our due process and right to counsel are not being undermined by ICE. We will connect detained immigrants to legal services and protect civil and immigrant rights that are foundational to our democracy. We urge the San Francisco public to be vigilant and help immigrants access these safety nets by calling the hotline number 415-200-1548 or 311 to access the Office of Civic Engagement and Immigrant Affairs Services. If you witness any ICE activities in San Francisco, impacted members of the community will have the right to remain silent and refuse consent to unwarranted searches and demand access to legal counsel. Immigrant families and communities will stand together, stronger now than ever in the face of these threats. San Francisco is united in our values and our practices. In this unity is our collective strength to exercise our power and transcend panic. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And I also want to take this opportunity to thank and recognize Adrienne Pond, who is with the Office of Civic Engagement and Immigrant Affairs. She's the director, along with her team and other commissioners here. Under their leadership, they will be leading the effort to assist with making sure that we are doing everything we can to get the information out there, to support people in our immigrant communities so that we can make sure that they feel safe and protected. I know that this may be a really scary time for so many people, but I do think it's important, as Maricel said, power and not panic. So that we can get through this. We will get through this. And that's why we put in place the kinds of resources to help you get through this. We are in this together. We will continue to stand behind our immigrant communities, and we will make it through together. So let's everyone look out for one another. Make sure that you call the hotline if you have any questions, 415-200-1548, 415-200-1548 or call 311 if you need to figure out which numbers you should call. We are here to do everything we can as a city family to address this very serious challenge that we know will occur in the next couple of days in San Francisco. Our eyes will be open, we will be vigilant, and we will ensure that our public is safe and protected. Thank you all so much for being here.